King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast. Here is the King of Podcasts.
For those of you that don't want to be caught up in the circus sideshow that is the State of the Union address and the pre-game, post-game festivities, all of you political aficionados, I'm not going to be a part of that. I tried to avoid that like the plague. I was watching Shogun tonight, the third episode in the series, which has been fantastic. If you haven't been watching it, you absolutely should. It's been very good so far. One of the things I have better things to worry about. Let's get into the real story of the matter. Listen, before I get started, here on the Broadcasters Podcast, I know that I have not been very much playing into the idea of, let's just play something kind of sexy and interesting and fascinating that my mainstream audience might catch on to. Let's talk about Beyonce. Let's talk about, Taylor Swift. No, I haven't been doing anything about that. I'm not going to talk about the award shows, nothing like that. Nothing about Dune 2, which was fine. Very well made. Cinematography was excellent. Good to see no CGI effects. That I like a lot. We could go on about that. I mean, listen, I could go on and talk about other subjects when it comes to various pop culture if I want to talk about it. Katy Perry's dress at the Billboard Women in Music Awards. Like, what was that? Otherwise, what else do you want me to go and talk about? I got other things to be worried about. I'm back into my industry space again for media because it's that time. The stories continue to come across about radio of what I've heralded, what I've appreciated more and more. There was a girl I watched on TikTok this week that praising the fact that a DJ function on Spotify. And I'll tell you, I listened to her. It's so great. It really feels good to go and have that kind of, that companion to kind of tell you about the stuff. It's getting better. It's getting better. I'll give them credit because they're learning that the DJ they're going to have on, they're trying to put a little bit extra information into the system. The Kane or whatever his name is, or X, I forget his name now. Tonight, we're going to talk more about radio. We're not going to talk about Odyssey this time. Not so much. Because now we're just hearing things where, it's interesting that, we're now at the start of March. Usually in January, we start seeing the end of the quarter or the end of the year figures and shareholders being informed as what is being done with their investment into said radio companies, whether it's iHeartRadio, which is still, $5 billion in debt. Odyssey, which is coming out of bankruptcy at $300 million in debt. Cumulus, which is, $1 billion in debt. A couple others are out there. Radio One. We can talk about those. But what's happening is talent. A slew of veteran radio talent, for whatever reason, dropped off the air in various markets. So we're going to focus on those tonight because there's something to be said about that. Then the story is coming across about AI being incorporated onto other stations. NPR stations losing their funding altogether. Are they going to be able to survive? Radio is being rampaged. I said it like that because it's true. It's just a lot of things happening in the same week. And I'm not sure why this is all happening and what was causing all this. I sound like Ric Flair. What's causing all this? Anyway, we'll get into the stories. Let's get into it right now. First of all, I want to go and take, before we get to anything here, I want to know what story would be the best way to start. We're going to start with the Daily News and talk about Southern California. The Los Angeles Daily News. And they talk about a story about 4 Southern California midday radio DJs taken off the air. What happens next? Richard Wagner, who we've talked about before, he writes for SoCal Radio Waves, and I think I've seen him in other articles. But something happened here. Meruelo, how do you say this? Meruelo. Meruelo. Yeah, Meruelo Media. I guess that's what it is. They got rid of the midday slots of 4 LA radio stations. KDAY's PJ Butter, Brianna Monagain's, she was taken off of middays at Power 106, KPWR, Carolina Caro Marquez at KLLI, and Marcy Weiser at KLOS. So middays are normally run from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So here's what Richard writes. Cuts are a reflection of the downward spiral in which the radio industry finds itself, which isn't helped as companies use personalities in multiple markets, throwing the radio's local adage out the window. It's kind of like the 1980s when satellite-derived formats were becoming all the rage among some stations. To paraphrase what former Herald Examiner radio reporter Ray Richmond said at the time, the move has many advantages. It's cheap, it costs less, and it's less expensive. One of those formats is Super Radio, which is still around today, as a matter of fact. Which I've talked about. If radio can't do anything where they can supply some decent live and local talent, then just go ahead and go national with the format. Do what BBC Radio does, or what other nations do with their radio stations. There's national formats. That's okay. If that's what you have to do, then go ahead and do it. I don't know what else you do. So Richard says this, in my opinion, what should be done is simple. Get rid of most upper management, get on-air content up to par, empower the local program to do what is necessary to compete, and hire a ton of advertising salespeople to help spread the word of your station to local businesses that need a way to find new customers. All right. Now let's get into this. So Richard's point, upper management. I don't know what upper management there is in a radio station that might be conflicting with what is the purpose of the station and what it should be doing. Any, run-of-the-muck radio station should have, a general manager, maybe an assistant manager that handles the staff, program director, music director if need be, or news director if it's a talk station. Your talent, but what, upper management? That's about it. Production director, maybe. That's your upper management. Like, what is it of the upper management in the corporate sense? Maybe that's what they're talking about. And I wouldn't be, I feel like that's not wrong about that either. That would be a different story about this too. Now, he goes into a story about somebody he talks to that is a political host for a podcast. And we're going to pass on to this. The thing is that we hear this right here. And this change of DJs being just dropped off like nothing. I mean, the thing is that this is also a different form. This is a different company. Decided just to go ahead and eliminate midday altogether. That's just what they decided to go and do. Because I guess they feel like, they don't have enough advertising to go ahead and build up on the midday formats to go and keep these stations up and going and have, the need of any talent to go ahead and handle. But this is Los Angeles. That's 4 Class A signals in Los Angeles dropping midday talent. And who are they going to replace it with? Are we going to replace it with, younger, cheaper talent? Probably not. They're probably looking to do something to go ahead and change up. They probably will look to some other hosts in other markets and decide, well, we're just going to go ahead and put somebody else on. Because it doesn't really matter who's on in the midday. There are no segments. There's something special about these shows because they're not allowed to do anything special. Nothing where they can do anything with their identity or their presence on the radio, any interaction with the listeners. They don't get a chance to do any of that. Which is the reason why some stations will be able to do so well, but they don't. And that's the problem. Plus, they're not getting a chance to go and talk about new music at all either. That's another problem that happens in here. But else, what do we do? You know what I mean? I don't know what you do about that, but it's in a bad shape. iHeartMedia San Diego, they let go of 2 hosts, Shauna Moran and Chris Boyer. And they are part of Classic Rock KGB FM and KIOZ. Now, here's what we have. So, iHeartMedia San Diego now has a new senior vice president of programming in Taylor Jukes. And some changes were made as a result. Shauna Moran leaves as program director and director of programming and program director for Classic Rock KGB FM and Active Rocker Rock 105.3. So she's out. Now, Moran joined the cluster in 1996. So she was around, during the early days of Clear Channel. Again, look at that. 28 years. Named PD of KIOZ in 2000, added KGB-FM oversight in 2009, and then also the morning show host at KGB-FM, who is Chris Boyer, is gone. He was hosting the show Sarah, Boyer, and Clint, and he was working along with Sarah Beebe and Clint August, and he's been part of the show. You know, he was part of a longer running show called was the DSE Morning Show, which was hosted by Dave Rickards and Cookie Chainsaw Randolph, and they all retired in 2022 of December. And then we had Boyer and Beebe that was on that started a new show in January 2023, and just like that, 2 months later, not even 2 months, out. And that's it. It's like no explanation as to why, but changes are going on. But these are people that have been on for a long time. Clint Boyer, I mean, how long has he been on the air for? I don't even know how far he goes back to. But he's also out. Let's see if we can find more story from Radio Insider. Oh, here we go. Chris Boyer. He was on with the DSC Morning Show going back to the KGB-FM days of 1990. He moved the show in 1992 to KIOZ, then back to KGB-FM in 1997. But again, 34 years in San Diego, in the mornings, and he's out. You know, we did this story, you know, about a year and a half ago, so whatever, right? When I talked about, you know, Jack Harris being let go. And I forget the guy that came out of 99X or 97X in Atlanta also being let go. Like, what's going on here? But these changes are apparent, and they're just going along. Another person being let go is at 97.1 KFAN, radio veteran Brian Oak. I don't want to talk about political talk host, but Mark Kay is also let go from WOKV and various other stations syndicated for Cox Media Group. And now Eric Erickson takes his place. I don't care about what's going on when it comes to what he was being let go for, but the changes in radio, political is one thing, but this is music radio we're talking about. So 30-year radio veteran, Cities 97.1 radio personality, Brian Oak was summoned to the PD's office for an all-staff meeting. iHeartMedia's market president was at the office door. He was getting fired. He knew about it. So here's the story about Brian Oak getting fired. He says it did come out of nowhere. And, quote, I have zero idea what the rationale was. Both bosses were tight-lipped and said we're moving in a different direction. So the meeting was on February 21st with iHeart executives, City's program director Rich Davis and market president Greg Alexander. Lasted 11 minutes. Quote, they weren't severe about it. I wasn't thrown bodily from the building. I was sat down to give all the information they were willing to impart. Oak turned in his key card, took his coffee mugs, and left for a previously planned vacation schedule for the next day. In the meeting, the radio host pressed for answers. What did I do wrong? What didn't I do that I should have done? Was it internal machinations? What is it? They didn't want a 55-year-old guy pitching Taylor Swift? Was this station about to change formats? I honestly don't know why. Getting fired is the commonplace in my line of work. And he's been let go of 3 previous Twin City stations. So iHeartMedia wasn't going to comment about it. They didn't report to the Minneapolis Star-Tribune about this. And Oak had renegotiated on a 2-year contract, his second 2-year contract in 2021. He didn't figure out why he was axed. Quote, I can't believe it's financially motivated. I came back for less than half of what I was making when I've been working there before. I love doing radio. He was rehired 3 years ago at Cities 97.1 to host his morning show, but in November he was quietly moved to afternoon drive, and then another person went to mornings. But from 2001 to 2015, Oak was a mainstay on Cities, which is an adult alternative pop rock station, before joining Minnesota's public radio 89.3 The Current. Then he left The Current in 2019, suspended over social media posts. And then he was also let go from an alt rock station, which was sold, and another station, which was changed to a soft rock oldies format. On February 22nd, Oak was replaced by another person in the afternoon drive, who'd been hosting on another crosstown station, KDWB. iHeartMedia operates 7 stations out of its St. Louis Park offices, including KFAN, Country Mainstay K102, and Oldies outlet Cool 108. As called for in his iHeart contract, Oak is receiving severance pay, and while he's collecting, he's not eligible to be hired by another radio station per a non-compete clause. Now, he is going to continue to do a podcast that he has. He will still be clerking part-time at the Mill City Sound Record Store in Hopkins, Minnesota, and have his podcast, which he's done 375 episodes to date. Yeah, you can't just do a radio show and just make it a living anymore. No, we have to all have other jobs. I mean, the fun of radio is gone. We knew about that. That's been going on for a long time. But the real question is, why is this all happening at one time? Why are we getting all these folks now being let go all at once? Well, not much we can go and figure out about it, but there are a few things we're learning about this. And one of the things we're all should be thinking about when it comes to radio is, well, is it something to do with a certain technology that's out there? Do we need human interaction? Do we need human components, like human emotion, to have somebody, talk about a contest or a promotion or promote a website or promote social media or whatever they need to have done, which can be just done through, a program set of liners and promos and all read material? Are we going to get to the point right now where radio is going to be used where, they could absolutely have somebody doing a show without the need of somebody like yours truly or someone else being on to broadcast as such? Like, we know that's also coming down the line too. We know that. We talked about that before. AI, right? We've talked about AI possibly coming into play and taking over what could very well be the change that happens altogether for stations. I talked about that March of last year, as a matter of fact. Even last year, we talked about there was a new launching of AI radio to show, there was a whole system being put into place about, from Super Hi-Fi and 11 Labs, creating AI radio, that AI-driven music experiences can be created using Super Hi-Fi and their Magic Sticks program, combining music tracks, audio liners, ad spots, sonic logos, and audio branding into a playlist. I have not checked out what AI radio has done since then, but they tried it. And I don't know if it's actually gone any farther than it already has. But we know it's out there. It's been talked about. And AI is being made now as an available product for stations. Does that sound like a good idea? I don't know if I really necessarily would enjoy to hear something like that at all, but one of these days it might very well happen. And that's going to be a problem. So let's go back to what was being talked about when it came to AI radio when we talked about that last year. I'm going to go ahead and play a clip for you from what they put there together as a trailer to showcase AI radio. Take a listen to this. And tell me if, are we at the point where, veteran radio talent, is it time just to go and unload them? Because just having the same people working on a technology right now that is antiquated, that radio stations just want to use technology now and just remove human interaction and just any kind of human influence or anything at all. They just want to make it robotic. Completely jukebox the entire thing from music to talk. Starting with music and then go to talk. So check this out.
Few entertainment formulas are more impactful than radio. Epic, lean-back listening experiences that can elevate your mood, create community, and even inform, all while you're being entertained. It's why radio experiences still matter, and why even the world's biggest streaming services are launching radio experiences of their own. But here's the problem. Building amazing radio is hard, and the only tools to do it were designed back in the 90s. That's why the people who build these listening experiences, you, are working so hard for so long and still falling behind. But now,
it's not that hard. See, they're trying to make this point that, the radio is supposed to be hard, trying to do this the human way and, working smarter, not harder, thinking that we can't assemble a team of people. I mean, the problem is that radio has already been made of a medium that people are being, they're being swayed away from. Okay. There's no interest in radio anymore. Not the kind of interest there used to be. Like, there's no money to be made. There's no presence. There's no fun. All the fun, pomp, and circumstance, all the things that made being in radio fun and interesting and be possibly a lucrative profession, those are gone. All that's been taken away. And the money that was there is being made by the suits. Do you understand? The suits are making this money. And the suits do not know, nor have they ever had the inclination on how to run a radio station. They might have some business acumen, but radio is supposed to be run a certain way with radio people. It's like when we talk about professional wrestling on my wrestling program. It's wrestling people that understand the business. So radio people don't understand the business. But anybody else coming from a different format, of a different thing, we don't need you to worry about the programming. Okay? What you do with radio, if you're suits, why don't you figure out how to go ahead and sell it? Because that used to be the only thing that mattered to the suits. It wasn't the programming. It was a matter of how much money can they make from it. But that mindset, so simple. That's gone now. No, because the suits thought, well, we're going to get into the programming game. We've been around long enough, these corporate suits. We know how they're going to run programming now. So we're going to just take it over. We've learned from you people. And we can do it better than you. It's an ego-driven kind of thought. We can do it with technology. We don't need you old, haggard radio people that are hard to maintain and manage and discipline on a regular basis. We don't want you to be aloof and creative and inventive and do things. See, the thing is, they don't want, people like Howard Stern or Don Imus or, they want safe people. They want people that are safe on the air. Okay. The kind of people that I always think about that, that I heralded as my role models in radio that changed the game. I'm talking about Casey Kasem. Casey Kasem did do a different thing, but he is also a disruptor. He changed the way radio was done. But think about it, Dan Ingram was different. You change around the way things were being done with a Howard Stern or a Don Imus or Tom Likas or Rush Limbaugh. Because they were larger than life. They found a way to go and reach out to the audience. They could sell ads. Okay. They all did this. And the radio station management and the program directors at the time, they were happy with the money. But it was the talent that made the money for them. It wasn't the music. You had to bring people to listen to them in the first place, to get them to not listen to records, not listen to CDs or cassettes or whatever there was, or listen to another radio station. You had to have the talent. The talent was the glue that brought people in. It's like honey to a bee. Okay? The radio talent, they attracted listeners. And they attracted advertising. And get a salesperson to say, hey, I represent this person. Let me tell you something. Think about how easy it must have been if you were WXRK in New York and you had Howard Stern and you were syndicating his show. And you're saying, oh yeah, I represent Howard Stern. And, we can have him to do an ad, like, part of one of the ad packages. He can go ahead and read your ad. Oh, how much will it be? Oh, $1,600 for like per minute or something like that. Like, some ridiculous number of pricing, and people will pay for it. Because it wasn't so much, we're going to talk about, whatever it is. Take a product. Okay, take it's Bacardi. Think of it as Pepsi, whatever. It's not just because the product is being pushed on the advertising. It's because it was Howard Stern talking about it. Take a pick of anybody else. Like, listen, Jim Rome. Okay. I mean, there are just certain people that attract listeners. Talent attracts listeners. But that's the component that all these radio companies have chosen not to go and deal with. They don't want to deal with the headache that was dealing with people in radio. Listen, movies, you deal with people that are a bit cantankerous and ego-driven and, larger than life. But if they attract people to the box office, movies get the same thing here too. Right? I mean, how many disruptive people do we have right now that are working in movies that are box office draws, and they're cantankerous and they're tough to deal with and difficult, but you know what? People will work with them anyway. All right? Or they're just really good at their job and people just love them. Like, that's the thing. A good radio station across the board, when they had a lineup, you had people that you liked every part of the day part and night. For some of us that listened to radio for so long, we enjoyed radio that it encompassed having people we listened to all day, all night. We knew who when they were on. We want to listen to them, want to catch up with them. Hey, how you doing? I can't tell you how many times of stations that I remember that I enjoyed. And I can tell you who was on the lineup from morning to day to night. Because we could do that. And it wasn't always easy. It wasn't always like somebody doing 3 or 4 hour shifts. Sometimes it was only like an hour, 2 hours a day in sports talk. I mean, I think of stations like, okay, let me tell you, WIOD. What was it? Mornings, Rick and Suds, Neil Rogers after that, Randy Rhoads after that, Aaron Summers after that. Now, I don't know who was on it late night. And I'm pretty sure Coast to Coast was on after that. When I think of, let me see, FM radio. Okay, let me think of, let's go with Power 96. It could be a various number of morning shows. There could have been like various variations. Let's go with Get Up and Go with Mindy and Bo. Let's go with Cox on the radio after that. Middays. Let's think here. It could have been Leo or Joe Nasty or, Kid Curry was, no, that's right. Kid Curry was on for many years, middays, then Cox on the radio. And then it could have been Demas or Muhammad Moretta or, pick names. And that's what we had. And it would be like that all across the board. We enjoyed the talent that was on. And we used to have talent that used to go ahead and be, you would program talent according to the time of day. So it was always like, all right, if you're going to have, a morning show, you have a few people on. You usually have a female, for the most parts, over on middays. And then you go to afternoon drive with a guy, another guy at night. Sometimes like the female talent would always take the midday slot. One of my favorite stations, the Power Pig. Okay, it used to be, after Three Little Pigs, it was MJ and BJ. And then it was Dave Mann, who was on, and I remember their format was very different. MJ and BJ, they would actually have their show start on the odd hours. So it was 5 to 9 for MJ and BJ, 9 to noon for Dave Mann, 12 to 3 for Jennifer Jordan, 3 to 7 for, let's say, Jeff Thomas, usually. Or Hollywood Jeff Lawrence, or what have you. And then you would have either Bubba the Love Sponge, that would be on 7 to 11, and the Tom Steele Show, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m., something like that. And I forget what was on at night. I think it was Domino. I think it was. But the talent was the glue. You can't make that with AI. That's not going to happen. And whoever the mindsets right now are thinking that's going to be a good idea, they think something like this right here, AI radio. This is the answer. Well, listen to what their answer is.
They're Super Hi-Fi. It's a modern AI-powered toolset that lets you create experiences that delight your listeners and bring your brand to life in minutes, not days. So you can build and scale without sacrificing a drop of quality. Broadcast radio? Super Hi-Fi saves you time and money with a truly revolutionary set of scheduling and automation tools. Online radio? Build and manage an unlimited number of fully branded world-class streaming stations, all with just a few clicks. Personal radio? Easily power the future of listening with a broad toolbox of amazing music technologies. Then, just leverage the power of the Super Hi-Fi AI, stepping in where you leave off and automatically delivering fully produced, high-touch listening experiences that sound incredible.
No. See, the AI technology is controlling the programming. They've been doing that for years. But now we're getting to the point where now they want AI to be the voice as well. They feel like they've done enough work to get us there. So that's next on their list. And there's a bunch of stories about that too. Oh, what? There are more radio layoffs to talk about. Here we go. In Canada. So there were several morning show hosts that were on for 6 years in Calgary. Jessica Hoy and Bobby May. They've been let go by the station. And they were on the show called 101.5 Today. And they were also on 95.3 Wild FM. Oh, sorry, 101.5 Today Radio. They also had hosts named by Bo and Jess. They were also let go. And in Canada, for whatever reason, that's all happening right now. A lot of it. For Bobby May, he's been on radio for 17 years. Just thought I'd make that point too. A lot of stories being brought up with people being let go from radio for whatever reason. So Fred Jacobs has talked about this, who I respect a lot that he is working as a consultant. He will at least talk a little bit of truth when it comes to what he says about radio, but he's not willing to go ahead and put himself out there bend himself so far as to alienate those that are being consulted by him. Or alienating the radio industry itself. He can't bash the industry so much, but he can kind of lecture them a little bit. So here's what he says. Where do radio listeners draw the line with AI? Now, he came back from the Country Radio Seminar and said that rather than the finger pointing and paranoia that we've heard in abundance at previous shows, attendees were mostly all in. So it was a town hall session, and they were talking about early use experiences with AI technology, because now AI is being instituted all across the board on radio stations. Now, Fred Jacobs has his own tech survey that he goes on and really usually gets like an idea on how everything works with radio stations and what they're doing. Being able to talk to all these different program directors and executives and all, and talent to learn what's going on with these stations so he can give an accurate assessment of where the industry is going and where they are. 31,000 respondents representing key radio formats. They approached AI content on 3 different levels. Commercial production. How do they feel about AI-generated voices on station ads? IDs and promo production. Is it okay for stations to use AI to voice basic positioning and identification? Shows and air shifts. What about AI-voiced radio shows? And so they went ahead and said, put a couple of things, and they got a poll, basically, of these particular subjects. Here's what we got. So using AI technology in place of live DJs and hosts is a major concern for most core radio listeners. So the choices to have are major concerns or no problem with it. When it comes to taking the place of live DJs, personalities, hosts, or announcers, 75% have major concerns, 4% have no problem with it. About reading commercials, 39% say there's major concerns, 21% no problem with it. For reading station IDs, major concerns, 30%, No problem with it, 34%. So AI in place of live talent is a deal breaker for most respondents. 3 in 4 expressed major concerns about this use case for AI. Bear in mind, the question did not incorporate the idea of robots pushing out humans into jobs, but it's not a stretch to assume many likely read it this way. It's an accurate way, perhaps, thinking about how AI might be used at least with some radio producers looking to not only streamline operations, but do it for less money. Now, he talks about Spotify having the artificially intelligent DJX and how SiriusXM has will.i.am recently introducing QD.PIE, a cyber sidekick, on his SiriusXM show. There's more he talks about here, but I'm not going to get into it and ramble too much in it. There's more about AI that's out there anyway. We haven't talked much about iHeartRadio in a while and what they've been doing, but there was a story that came out about iHeartRadio now using AI to make music decisions. So Bob Pittman spoke Tuesday at the Morgan Stanley 2024 Technology, Media, and Telecom Conference. He says, with the talk in AI and radio revolves around concerns in the use of synthetic voices, technology has far more practical applications for the industry. And programmers right now are using it to assist in making music choices. Bob Pittman says, quote, AI provides us with a level of efficiency I think we couldn't have dreamed up 5 or 6 years ago. And Pittman explains to investors the importance of program directors getting the music right on their stations. Quote, we have the same music that everyone else has. How are we number 1 and somebody else is number 20? The answer lies in using AI in the decision-making process. Quote, we used to do about 3 big data inputs for a programmer to look at every week. When we started using AI, we could get 3,500 inputs. Or 3,500 inputs, excuse me. Typically, AI is used at iHeart to provide suggestions for the programmer, choosing from among those suggestions. In some markets, we actually tested letting AI make the final decision. The ratings were about 10% better. So now we can reduce time spent on other stuff, add more productivity. And that's just one example on how we intend to use it. Okay. But the thing is that whatever AI you're putting in, it still involves what music you're allowing to be added into the system. Okay? Because they're only going to pick the highest of the high. They're going to only pick the most bona fide hits to play on a station. Or the highest choice of the smallest rotation of music on any other station. And they're going to use the small sample of that they have for any music radio station, whether it's maybe 70, 80 songs for a hit music station or a new music station, and maybe 250 songs, maybe 400 songs for a classic rock station or a country station or adult contemporary or urban, whatever. They're all going to have their own thing, but remember, they're not going to let the AI go ahead and pick a large sample of music. Maybe take new music that's streaming and just test it. No. Of course you're not going to do that. They're not going to let the algorithm get that much. Because they can't control it. Because they also want to be able to control what music is going out there and what they want to put on. That's what they prefer to do. That's what they want to do. And when it comes to iHeartRadio and iHeartMedia, Bob Pittman talks about that. They're using the reach of their broadcast radio footprint to feed other parts of their business. Podcasting, events, digital radio, all of which are growth drivers for the company. 2023, iHeartMedia had $408 million in podcast revenue. Other companies like Spotify and Acast said they turned their podcast business profitable this year. Pittman said the link to radio iHeart has been in the black since entering the business. That's in podcasting. And $408 million doesn't do a dent to your interest in the $5 billion plus that you owe in debt, Bob. Quote, everybody else is struggling to do it, but it's because it's an adjacent business. It gives us an enormous advantage. So you can build quality. Oh, good for you. We already have an infrastructure. We make audio content every day. We just got to make it a little bit more for podcasting. We don't have to build the infrastructure for it. When we sell our audio advertising, we don't have to start from ground zero and hire all these salespeople. We just have to tell our sellers to sell some podcasting. Well, in podcasting, you just can't sell the shows because they got, a content that some people might want to listen to. No, it's the same concept I just talked about before with radio. You had people that you like to listen to, that you want to listen to. You want to support their show. And then you decide, okay, you can find advertisers that say, hey, I want to advertise on Joe Rogan. I want to advertise on Adam Curry. I want to advertise on, pick a show. Call Her Daddy. But they're not thinking that way. President, COO, and CFO Rich Bresser said that with more than 1,000 sales reps across 150 markets worldwide, iHeart has also adopted the strategy of allowing any salesperson to sell anything in the company's entire portfolio. Well, they have to, if they're probably selling it just on commission. So we have 1,000 feet in the street, and yes, selling broadcast radio, but we have 1,000 plus feet in the street selling podcasts. And Pittman says these strategies paying off. As we have new products, they're able to talk to the advertiser about more products, which gives them more credibility with the advertiser. And for us, it allows us to be able to put revenue onto new revenue streams very quickly. The podcasting business has really been a juggernaut for us. And a lot of that is because having the advantage in the local markets as well as our national sales. Then sell the radio stations off. If they're such a burden to you, then sell them off. If you're making so much money on podcasting, Bob, Rich, come on. Like, why do we need to go ahead and have any discussion on this? Just let them go. Let the stations go. Let them free. Quit holding them hostage so you can just continue to drop the talent. I mean, some of the talent, listen, they're probably a little bit old in the tooth and they're probably not changing themselves too much anyway. So, like, yeah, sometimes a change of the guard is good, but there's nobody out there to replenish or replace what was there. It's like it's older audience. People are just kind of like being taken out of there because I think part of it is they don't want to have anybody tenured. They don't have anybody there now that's on air anymore. They don't want to hire for on air. Not so much anymore. Eventually the radio companies are going to try to say, well, we have enough reason, enough cause, enough experimentation to say, hey, we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull the trigger on AI to control everything on our radio stations. The programming, what's on the station in terms of content, and what is being done in between the content. That'll happen someday. Just watch out for it. And don't get back at me if I tell you I told you so. How about this? There is a high school radio station that debuted on February 27th. A partnership between Super Hi-Fi, Xperia, Cumulus, and Nashville area's Green Hills High School. They have launched WGFX HD2 The Hill, one of two HD side channels combining Super Hi-Fi's AI-driven program director operating system and Xperia's HD radio and DTS auto stage. The other is called Nashville Songwriter Radio. The Hill is a mix of popular and emerging music across hip-hop, alternative, and country. Similarly intentioned, but very different sounding on another suburban outlet, which is called Yoko Nashville 96.7 WYCZ. And Sean Ross here decides to go ahead and look into what the stations are playing right now. So C98.5 is a dance station that does music for dance music, and he does a listen to that station. And then he listens to The Hill, the Super Hi-Fi Xperia AI run radio station. So they're talking about the fact that they wanted to create a station that was an alternate universe CHR for the unsolid generation. So at 3 p.m. on their launch day on February 27th, they played these songs. The band Perry, If I Die Young. They played a 2 for Tuesday set for Conan Gray with Winter and Heather. Moneybag Yoga and Futures, Keep It Low. Holly Humberstone's The Walls Are Way Too Thin. Halsey's You Should Be Sad. Fisher and Keita Alexander's Atmosphere. Killers, Your Side of Town. Haley Witter's Everything She Ain't. Tay Money and Mona Leo, Hands Up. M83's Midnight City. Dominic Fike's Mona Lisa. And Jungkook featuring Lotto, 7. They figured, let's go ahead and try to put something like this together. And so that was the idea of an AI station being put together and putting out music. Let's think of what can happen overall. Now let's move on to some other news. We're going to follow up a little bit on Universal Music Group, which we talked about extensively last week on the program. More U.S. publishers and songwriters, they might see their songs going away because the National Public Music Publishers Association, the NMPA, might not renew their license with TikTok. And that's according to Billboard. So this trade body represents U.S. publishers and songwriters. They said this week it does not expect to continue its current licensing agreement with the social media platform. NMPA members include Sony Music and Warner Chappell, part of Warner Music Group. They have combined catalogs which feature Beyonce, Damien Albarn, who's the lead singer of Blur, Quincy Jones, UK rapper Dave, and many other heavy hitters. In a letter to members, the NMPA highlighted concerns around TikTok's licensing practices, adding that it does not anticipate continuing its current license with the video app once the latter expires on April 30th. And it comes after Universal Music, which is an NMPA member, had its own licensing deal with TikTok terminated. Its contract recommended issues of royalty rates. Sony Music and Warner Chappell follow suit, meaning many chart-topping electronic music hits won't be available on the social channel. So more ramifications for this. The pressure is being put on TikTok now. It's a shame they're doing it, but that's what they're deciding to do. And for dance music like this to be dropped off the format here, that's not good. I don't like that at all. But the pressure is being put on. They're trying to do something here. It's not good, but what are you going to do about it? We're trying to figure it out. I wanted to bring one other story about radio that's coming out here. WBR having some issues right now. Significant challenges due to a dramatic loss of sponsorship report. Increase in listeners and readers, though, but the station's lost nearly half of its on-air sponsorship income over the last 5 years. Their CEO, Margaret Lowe, emphasizes the situation is unlike their usual on-air fundraising appeals. Decline in sponsorship amounts to a staggering $7 million for the station, and it's unlikely to return. Only 3% of the annual budget comes from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Their path forward lies in philanthropic investment as local organizations continue to face financial pressures. Philanthropists contributed $500 million to support local news in 2023. Local newspapers continue to shrink. And Lowe aptly described the situation as a race against time to sustain WBR's vital work. Big station in Boston. A lot of things can be happening with them overall. Who knows what will happen? Interesting story coming out, and this is from Huffington Post. Hollywood executives are deprioritizing diversity at their own peril. An annual report has perennially documented same patterns in the entertainment industry. And here's what we're hearing about. The UCLA Hollywood Diversity Report, they're reporting that diversity is essential to the entertainment industry's survival, as moviegoers of color consistently drive box office success. Movies with more diverse casts tend to perform best at the box office, and prioritizing the diversity behind the camera is often what ensures diversity on screen. These have all been consistent findings in the annual editions of this report, and the latest report has been put out. And they challenge Hollywood executives' conventional wisdom that diversity doesn't sell internationally. The global box office results in 2023 debunked the myth as movies with predominantly white casts consistently underperform internationally, according to the report. 9 of the top 10 films in 2023 feature casts that were more than 30% of color. Movies with 11% or fewer actors of color did the worst at the global box office, making just $18.2 million. And financial success also comes to movies that prioritize gender diversity. Half of the 10 biggest films worldwide feature more than 40% women in their casts. So this push is being pushed across, that diversity does not travel. That's a myth that they're trying to say, but the researchers say that they've repeatedly found that films with casts are racially and ethnically diverse perform well in international markets. As diverse as the U.S. audience, global audiences want to see themselves reflected on screen. All right. A couple different things going on. Another story I could bring up here. Hollywood Reporter has a story that says that the industry's not back, that Hollywood crews are struggling right now, even coming back from the strike that we all dealt with and heard about from 2023. Major Hollywood crew unions began negotiating health and pension benefits with studios and streamers. And there could be a strike if need be during the talks, but LA area crew members said the aftermath of the writers and actors walkouts, Doesn't seem to be much work to halt if their own stoppage is called. And the word is that there hasn't been any real work. The industry's not back. What's back is a few things that are doing pickups or needing the restart from things that were shut down before May. Permit and shoot day volume is down 14.3% in LA, compared with levels from 2023. They said there was increases in activity in shoot dates for commercials and shoot dates for feature films, but what we've seen is a lot of fairly small-scale production. We haven't seen the large films or, in fact, a lot of the series TV returns to television yet. It's just beginning to come back. And the word is that everyone's kind of waiting to see what the new normal is, knowing that there is a contraction in the industry and knowing that the streaming bubble has popped and studios and production companies are spending less money than they have in recent years. There we go. A couple of interesting stories I want to bring up here. So, Warner Brothers Discovery is looking to overhaul True TV, which was the core TV channel for all these years. And they've tried to do some other things with it. You know, what is it? And Practical Jokers, is that the main show that's on there that like runs like how Ridiculous this runs on MTV on a regular basis, right? Oh, and World's Dumbest. That's also the other show they put out. So the idea is to add sports into the broadcasting schedule. A new sports schedule would likely draw broader viewership and new ad dollars in network, spur cable distributors to accord the outlet more value in future carriage contracts. The schedule would not only consist of simulcasts of the NHL, Major League Baseball, and NBA matchups that typically turn up on the TBS or TNT cable networks, they would intend to air new alternate casts targeting new different audiences. Think the Manning cast. A new live half-hour TNT sports update each evening at 6 and a new weekly program based on the social media-driven clip showcase House of Highlights. A new block is supposed to start March 11th, the week prior to the March Madness basketball tournament. And so that's something that's going to be looked at pretty soon, that they're going to add some more sports broadcasting to the lineup soon enough. And another thing that is very interesting after all this is said and done, CBS is looking to develop their first new soap opera since The Bold and the Beautiful. They're developing The Gates. This caught my attention. I was like, wow. Daytime TV might be doing a new soap opera. So CBS Studios and the NAACP announced on Wednesday that they're developing The Gates, a new daytime drama about a wealthy black family living in a posh gated community. Procter & Gamble Studios will co-produce the series. Procter & Gamble previously worked on As the World Turns, Guiding Light, and Another World. The Gates will be the first new soap opera on network television since The Bold and Beautiful premiered in 1987. And the first new daytime soap on broadcast TV since Passions debuted on NBC in 1999. You know, I remember watching Passions. There was a girl on that show, curly hair, and beautiful. I used to always watch that show just because of her. You know what? I need to go look her up. Hold on. Let me find out where this is. If I find her in the cast, I just want to I'll just shout the name because I really did think that show was like something else. It ran until 2007, and that ran on the 101 network of DirecTV till 2008. And that was it of that. So let me see who was in the cast. I gotta watch this again. I don't know who was in part of the show in particular, but it was interesting, nevertheless. Brooke Kerr, that's her. Whitney Russell. Oh my goodness, I couldn't get my eyes off. She was gorgeous on that show. And I don't know what it was about her, but she's still on General Hospital, by the way, so she's been around ever since. But yeah, that was the one reason I even watched that show in the first place, was her. I remember that. I don't know why, but I do remember watching that show just because of her. Those curls, forget about it. Soap opera veteran Michelle Valjean, who's written over 2,000 episodes of daytime drama, will be the scriptwriter for the series. Her previous credits include General Hospital, Bold and the Beautiful, and Santa Barbara. And she worked on daytime TV's first ever black soap, Generations, which ran from 1989 to 1991 on NBC. Yeah, because Generations, that was the 12:30 slot. Always tough for all these networks to run something right after the midday news. Everybody had trouble. Look, ABC had a lot of trouble with that. They had Loving and Ryan's Hope and Port Charles. Trust me, I watch soap operas, man. My mom was big about it. She loved those shows. And let's just say she had destroyed a couple of VCRs in her time, probably a good 5 or 6 high quality VCRs, because she's not the type that would go ahead and rewind and hit the fast rewind. No, she wanted to watch and rewind. And sometimes the rewinding, she would actually fall asleep doing it. So she'd have to rewind one way and then rewind the other way. And that's 3 hours worth of content, because she was watching All My Children, One Night to Live, and General Hospital regularly. And that's not even counting Young and the Restless, because she did. Super into soap operas. Interesting. So, and now, does the Stars, is that run like at 1 o'clock? Is that what they're going to plan to do? Interesting. We'll see if it's going to be any good or not. But I'll maybe I'll even take a look at it myself and see what it's like. Can you do a soap opera and make it work again? That's the interesting part. But hey, I'm going to let them figure it out themselves and see if they can actually make it work. I'm curious. Maybe we can see what they do after all and figure it out. That's the show for tonight. kingofpodcasts.com is where you find all my content. Social media, also there. Also do some other great programming throughout the week. Rest Goes for Podcasts, The Brave and the Debaucherous. Check out all of those shows. Again, I'm on Twitter, or now X, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, LinkedIn, all of it. Come back next week for another Broadcasters Podcast. And remember, content is king, and the control of your content is in your hands.